What's up? It's Robert, and although I'm in my office right now, only 30 minutes ago I was waking up from a nap in my bed when all of my muscles were frozen. My eyes opened, I was alert, I was aware that I was in my room, but I could not move. And I think they call this sleep paralysis. If you've ever undergone this, it can be quite alarming. But I want to go through my thought process of this experience, and it's going to lead to some insights into the human condition, physiology, and death. So this time, I mean, this has happened maybe once before. To me, it's very rare, but this time it happened like at least 20, maybe even 30 seconds. So there I am in my bed, unable to move, and a few thoughts go through my mind, okay? So, first of all, if I can't move, actually I could move. I was able to move my eye because I remember looking down like at my nose, okay? Otherwise I was looking just at the ceiling. I was not able to see my legs or anything else. So the fact that I could move my eyeball, at least that much, told me that I did have motor control over I think they call them the ocular muscles, right? So if this is an eyeball looking out, then behind the eyeball are these muscles attached to it, so that, like, let's say the top one contracts, then this eyeball is going to turn upwards so that you can look up, okay? So I knew that I had control over these muscles, right? However, I did not have control over any other muscles. I tried to move my legs, I couldn't. I tried to see if I could, and I couldn't even see my legs. But tried to move my arms, couldn't move my arms. All right. So what's going on there? Here's what went through my mind in those 20 seconds, and this is because I've studied anatomy physiology, and if you've taken that course, like, this should be review for you. But it's very, very crucial to understanding how this thing works. So anytime there's a muscle contraction, right, that is initiated in the brain with some electrical activity, that electrical signal travels down the spinal cord, down one of the nerves, let's say one of the nerves that goes through your arm, and then it arrives at, let's say, the bicep. When it arrives at the bicep, that electrical signal, let's say this is like part of the muscle, that signal causes calcium to go into the area of the muscle, which then causes it to contract, okay? And that the signal that travels down here travels from one cell to another cell to another cell. And the way that it transfers between cells is, when it comes to the end of one cell, it releases these neurotransmitters like boats that travel across the river to the other shore, which is the next neuron cell, and then they arrive, and then the signal continues. Okay, so it's this long path from the brain to the muscle to contract. So if I'm not contracting my muscles, then there's many possibilities, right? Number one, I think that I'm initiating the movement. I want to move, so I think I'm initiating it in my brain because I have the thought of it. But why is it not arriving to the muscle? Well, maybe somewhere in here, maybe the signal doesn't get down the spinal cord, right? Maybe in one of the cells, the boats don't work, so to speak. They don't cross over, so the message stops. All right, another possibility, maybe the message gets all the way down here and then goes down the nerve down my arm and gets here, but maybe no calcium goes into the muscle for some reason. Maybe there's no calcium, and so then the muscle doesn't contract. So in this long, chain of events, there's so many opportunities for it to fail. So that went through my mind. Obviously, something is not functioning correctly, right? I'm not moving. Another thing that was going on was I felt like, I know it sounds funny, but I felt like someone or something was like petting my left hand. And so in the very initial part, as I was still waking up, I didn't know if I was like awake or asleep, and I was trying to say, who's there, right? I was saying, who's there? Who is that? Like, who's petting my hand? And I couldn't produce the sound in my voice. Obviously, I couldn't, didn't have the muscle control over that. And so then that kind of got freaky, right? Because what if I needed help, and what if I yelled for help and I couldn't produce any sound? That's kind of freaky, right? And we're going to come back to that in just a second. But so there's 2 points that I want to make. Number one, some people in this situation might think that they were visited by something, some force, some greater force, right? Like an angel. And I could see, especially if you don't have the understanding of physiology, like it makes a lot more sense. Like, oh, some angel or a demon visited me and somehow magically I could not move, right? But then all of this stuff is just gray because the person does not understand that. So, I mean, was there a presence of visitation in the room? Maybe, but it's, if there was, if like some little like ghost person, whatever, came in the room, like they would need to interrupt or disrupt this pattern somehow. Like, and I don't know how they would do that. Like, you know, surely they could have some sort of like electromagnetic energy, right? And then that could affect, like I say, like when you go to the dentist, right, and they do x-rays, and you're exposed to the radiation, which you cannot see, but it's affecting like the body, right? It can cause cells to stop working. Same as if you're exposed to like radiation in a power plant, right? And you get like cancer or something. Like it could affect you. Yeah, there are forces that we can't see that can affect us, right? So the question would be like, if there was some sort of presence, what kind of electromagnetic energy, right, would it be emitting, and then how would that be disrupting the, my movement there? Also, how would that be causing activity in either the sensory receptors of my hand, giving me the sensation of being touched, and the signal going back up here, or just directly stimulating the brain in the area where that signal would arrive, giving me the false idea that I was receiving a stimulus here on the hand. So anyways, that's it just gives a little bit of insight into how I think of this thing. But that leads, it's also going to tie into my second point, which is, my second point is that I asked myself, like, here I am in a townhouse, living with other people. What if I never came out of this state? What if I was forever paralyzed? I couldn't move my, I could move my eye maybe, but I couldn't produce sound through my voice. What if I just stayed there? Nobody checked on me, and then for days, I didn't come out of my room, and nobody thought to knock or check on me or enter the room. What if I just stayed in that state, and then I died because of dehydration, right? That's a pretty wild thought, but on the one hand, it can make you feel quite helpless, but on the other hand, I had to be at peace with that. In a very brief minute, I had to be at peace. And how did I get at peace with that? Well, it's through, the universe doesn't owe us anything, I feel. We need to understand that life is this physiological, functioning system. Our heart is beating, these lungs are filled with air, right? And if those stop, or if brain activity stops, then it's done, And it kind of reminds me, I grew up with one half of my family, or more so my grandparents on that side of the family, being Buddhist or practicing Buddhism. So when we had a death in the family on that side of the family, the mourning and the grief was notably different than on the other side of the family. So on the first side of the family, where, I should say on this side of the family, where people would be, crying a lot and just like suffering, like really strongly suffering from the death of family members. On this side, at least among the practicing Buddhists in that side of the family, they didn't have the same suffering. And I even asked, I said, hey, aren't you sad that this person died? And they said, yeah, it's sad, but but Siddhartha talked about impermanence, and everything's impermanent, and that's how life is. And I thought that was really cool. I mean, because it seems true. Like yes, we do pass away. Like, these bodies are impermanent, and while I have eyes moving, heart beating, lungs, breathing, I can be here and I can speak, and I'm, but if those systems shut down, then you're not going to get anything else from here. So that kind of leads to this question of being at peace with death. Can you be at peace with death? And I think the answer is yes, and the way that I arrive at that is through this understanding. If you've never taken anatomy physiology, I highly recommend it. I was taught by this really cool Indian guy who was a retired family physician, and his understanding of this stuff was just so on point. It was so accurate, and he could tell you how many problems he solved just by it's a funny story. He said one time he got a call from a parent saying that the daughter or the son was on the toilet with diarrhea and could not move. They could not stand up, and they didn't know what to do. Literally the muscles, the child could not move. And then so my professor, this physician, he thought, okay, well, diarrhea, depletion of liquids and electrolytes, including potassium and sodium, which are involved in these all of the signals and the muscle stuff. He said, drink Gatorade, and they gave the kid Gatorade. She sat right up, like that, and it's because he understands all of these potassium levels coming into the cell and out of the cell and all that stuff. So this is the human condition. So I think we need to understand that, and that's why I made this video. So remember to subscribe if you'd like to get updates on these in the future. And remember, last but not least, to put your existence first.